The British Grand Prix has ended with the victory of Lando Norris, the second position of Piastri, the third place of Nico Hulkenberg, the first career podium for Nico, and something sensational, a Sauber that manages to reach the podium at Silverstone. Among other things, Hulkenberg started 19th. It's really something unthinkable. And we need to analyze in today's video both the negative performances of Ferrari, what contributed to seeing such an unstable red. We must also analyze the Oscar Piastri incident under the safety car. Let's look together. First, however, I obviously remind you to subscribe, activate notifications, and leave a like to support the videos on the channel. Every day we analyze all the incidents that happen in Formula 1 and the most important news. Having said that, I want to start by doing a brief recap of the standings. And so we saw Colapinto 20th, Lawson 19th, the contact at the start of the race, then O Bortoleto, who also retired 18th, Aguiar, the contact at Copse, which then took him out of contact with Antonelli, who also had to retire, and then at Copse Aguiar, Antonelli retired, Tsunoda retired, who finished first. Finished the race in 15th position, it's Leclerc, who finished 14th. With a Ferrari, an unstable car, a few mistakes apart from the pit. We will also look at the team radio between Brian Bosey and Charles, and then we will also comment on the Ferrari race. 13th with 12th Sainz, 11th Berman, 10th Russell, who seemed to have something more with the Mercedes even when he was close to Hamilton. Instead, he lost many positions also due to that inexplicable hard tire at Mercedes. 9th Alonso, 8th Albon, 7th Stroll, 6th Gasly, who finished by overtaking Stroll at the end of the race. And the Alpine was excellent. In 6th position, 5th Verstappen, 4th Hamilton, who tried until the end to get on the podium, but unfortunately he missed this podium at Silverstone in 2025. He consistently placed on the podium at Silverstone, always finishing 3rd. Hulkenberg's first career podium. Great job, Nico. I want to give my biggest congratulations to Nico Hulkenberg for this achievement, especially since he defended himself until the end from a 7-time world champion and achieved his first career podium. So, great, Hulkenberg had a super positive attitude, even from 19th to 3rd, we also said before, and he had a great race in the wet. He never made mistakes. On the contrary, Hamilton made several, some long, which Nico did not do. And I also want to say it, who have been following Formula 1 for many years. Hulkenberg is an extremely solid driver, crucial for those mid-ranking teams because he brings home important points that are needed in the constructors' standings. In this case, this 3rd place of Sauber is a goldmine against the opponents. I'm discussing Haas, Williams, and other teams struggling at the back of the grid. This Sauber podium in these atypical races is crucial for earning many millions at the end of the year in the standings. Constructors that are then used to better develop the car, to hire new engineers. In short, it helps to best develop the team for the future. In this case for Sauber, which will then become Audi, so great Hulkenberg. For this podium, among other things, we also saw Verstappen, who complimented in the backstage, as well as Norris and Piastri. In short, great race, where he also defended himself from Lewis and was extremely respectful even in his celebration. Then we also saw the whole team cheering him on. Nico. You almost felt Nico Hulkenberg's victory more than Norris's victory, which was a bit gifted. And this brings me to the discussion about the safety car. And so the 10-second penalty given to Piastri, who then served it in the pit. Let's go and watch the penalty video together. And then also the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile statement and Piastri's own post-race comments. This is the most controversial incident that occurred in the race. So we have the safety car about to return the pit. There's already the safety car ending. Let's say the safety car is about to finish. In this case, because we are at the end of the lap, it has to return to the pit. And so let's see now when Piastri goes to brake to try to restart. After the end of the safety car, let's look at these images together. We see the safety car here in front. He slows down, brakes a lot on the straight, puts a lot of pressure on the brake, and this is the reason that penalizes him. Then after from the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, not so much the 10 cars away from the safety car, also because the light had gone out behind the safety car. The safety car was supposed to return to the pit, so it was more the fact that he braked hard on the straight, causing a dangerous situation. And then Verstappen moved to the right to avoid Piastri and also overtook him. In fact, many. Even Vanzini said in the commentary, be careful, they will probably penalize Verstappen, because the same situation was recreated as in Canada with Russell and Verstappen when Russell braked on the straight before the official one in Canada. So be careful, the same thing happened in that case. It should also be said that here the safety car had turned off the lights in addition, so it could manage the pace as it wanted. Piastri, the point that braked his bed, causing this dangerous situation. So they gave Piastri a 10-second penalty, really a lot. Let's also read the regulations. In fact, first I'll show you the onboard. Let's also see the onboard that helps us understand well how he had to dodge Verstappen. Piastri here, there was very little visibility. Obviously, you see the car in front suddenly braking. Verstappen was accelerating at that moment. He had to brake suddenly to try to avoid Piastri, who had braked at that moment there. The safety car is quite far away, however, but more the fact of the braking that then affected the decision of the stewards. Let's go see together first the statement from the stewards, and then let's go read together also the team radio. And let's also listen to the post-race plaques. This is the statement from the stewards, official statement from the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, taken directly from the official Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile page, which essentially tells us that the issue is the braking on Retino. Before turn 15, when the safety car lights were turned off, 10 seconds priority, 2 points on the license, so a total of 6 for 12 months. And let's see. The stewards then reviewed the incident with the data, videos, telemetry, team radio, and all video evidence on the car. And so the decision was that when the safety car was returning to the pits at the end of the lap and the lights were off from the safety car, this is an important fact, the number 81 car braked very hard at 59.2 psi of brake pressure. So, it reduced its speed in the middle of the straight between turn 14 and turn 15 from 218 km per hour to 52 km per hour. The result of this is that car number 1, which is Verstappen's, had to brake and try to avoid colliding with Piastri. This moment resulted in a braking that could have been avoided. Piastri's car could have avoided making Verstappen brake so much. And then we saw that Verstappen immediately got into position, having slightly passed Piastri, then slowed down to let Piastri pass. So Article 55.15 of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's sporting regulations requires that car 81 proceed at a pace that does not create too abrupt braking within the lap. Under safety car, and therefore all those maneuvers that are considered dangerous for other drivers cannot be allowed, let's say. And even when the safety car lights are off, so you can't make these abrupt brakes even in the middle of the straight. So obviously car 81 has, let's say, made this braking, and so it's not good. And he was penalized for this reason. So this was Piastri's decision. I'll also give you my opinion on this. In my opinion, Piastri, yes, it's true. He braked on the straight. He was wrong to brake so much. And so the penalty is right from one point of view, because it actually violates Article 55.15 of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's sporting regulations. But I also want to say another thing. It's also true that the same thing happened with Russell in Canada with Verstappen, and Russell was not penalized. And here there is a diversity of behavior from Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, always among the English drivers, favoring the English drivers. In this case, Piastri's planet favors Norris. In that case, it does not give Russell's planet favors the same Russell and the other drivers. In fact, there is also the meme I also reported here, which is present here, between the episode in Canada with Russell and Verstappen, the episode between Piastri and Verstappen, and passports. The diversity that is given to the penalty to those who have a passport that is not English, instead those English are never penalized. So in my opinion, from my point of view, it's a penalty that could have been avoided. For Piastri, he could easily slow down earlier. He was wrong to slow down on the straight, so I think this penalty is right, but it always has to be given. You shouldn't slow down the drivers so much on the straight because it can create dangerous situations, especially in this case where it's wet. Leave aside the fact that nothing happened because Verstappen avoided Piastri, but if Verstappen had hit Piastri, it would have caused a collision. A dramatic domino effect on the track, an objectively very dangerous situation. So the penalty is fair because he was potentially creating a dangerous situation on the track. And this should be avoided, especially under safety car conditions. Even if the term is over, the safety car is returning to the pits. However, this behavior should always be penalized, not only when there are non-English drivers, that is to say, English drivers, non-English drivers. Everyone should be penalized. We must have the same attitude. We can't do it one way one time and another way another time. This is what I condemn. And from another point of view, in my opinion, what I thought immediately as soon as I saw it live is that Piastri is a bit agitated. As you do also on the simulator, because on the simulator, these types of maneuvers are never sanctioned. One decides to slow down whenever they want, once the safety car has to return to the pits, and therefore has turned off the lights. You can decide to manage the pace as you want, even braking excessively, let's say, because you are the one managing the pace. At that moment, however, one thing is the simulator, one thing is reality in reality. You can't do this kind of maneuver because it's dangerous. Objectively, all he had to do was slow down a bit more, maybe after stall, or nothing would have happened. All drivers generally slow down before restarting after a safety car. In the various turns before the main straight, so I was thinking about Stowe, I was thinking about the last two turns. There were many points where Piastri could decide to start and where to brake a little more. Braking in the middle of a straight is always a dangerous situation, so this is what I'm going to say. And the thing that surprised me a bit is Piastri's reaction afterwards, because Piastri's reaction was a bit immature, both on and off the track. In fact, Piastri said after he made this team radio, in this video, "I think the penalty I received is not fair, so I believe there should be a position swap on the track and then race between me and Norris." In my opinion, this thing should not be said because it's an overly exaggerated request. It's a request you can't make on the track. It's not that you got a penalty, you have to respect that penalty you got, whether it's fair or not at that moment, and you have to run your race. Making this request to the team means that you are so convinced that you are right. But in that case, it's the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile that regulates the championship. So you can't go above the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. And you have a bit of that arrogance in asking your team to let your opponent compete in the championship. You can't do something like that. I understand Piastri's frustration, because this penalty, as I said before, you have to give it to both English drivers and non-English drivers. But you can't react this way and cry over the team radio either. Accept the penalty. Unfortunately, he made a move that I think Piastri could have avoided. He deserved the victory. Yes, because he was the fastest on the track, but he made this mistake on the track and almost... It perhaps shows a bit of Piastri's weak point, that as long as things are going well, he is very cool. When there is a small mistake, a hitch in the race, he gives in a bit mentally, and so it's not true that he is as cool as he shows. He is in many moments, but at other times he is also a normal driver like everyone else. Let's say I also let Piastri's words be heard after the race, and then we go on to tackle the Ferrari issue. Can I say my piece? There are also many things to say about it, so let's listen to Piastri together.
So this is the highlight of the day. Yes, I'll leave it here.
That's what he said. He didn't add much because he didn't want to get into trouble, so he didn't want to exaggerate on this. I appreciated it anyway. After the race, he did well not to lean too much on that situation. He reiterated in the podium, "I braked when the safety car lights were off." This is true. The point is that he braked too dangerously in that case. So this is what is being blamed by the FIA. Having said that, I also want to let you hear. Let's take a look at the race. Let's go over some situations. Let's also talk a bit about Ferrari's performance. We need to talk about this. Hamilton battling first with Russell and then tried to fight with Hulkenberg. This is the second part of the race. A Hamilton who was not on track. In fact, he said, "This car is so hard to drive, it snaps everywhere. It's a really hard car to handle, with the rear always going out." And we saw a Ferrari struggling a lot in managing the race. In the wet, I told you, be careful because Ferrari can go strong on the dry, but in the wet, it struggles a lot. We've already seen it other times this year. Just think about Australia, for instance. With the race in the wet, it struggled, and this car here is very, very difficult and nervous to drive in the wet. And this is also demonstrated by the fact that Hamilton couldn't even catch up to Hulkenberg. A Sauber against a Ferrari. In a situation where the track was dry and practically at the end of the race, Hulkenberg could have been caught. Hamilton had the potential, but he didn't succeed. He made many mistakes. This indicates that Hamilton is still not comfortable with this car. And the Ferrari only works well under optimal, ideal conditions. Otherwise, they really struggle to adapt to various circumstances. The thing that impressed me the most is the difference between all the other teams and McLaren, because if we look at the standings, it's clear how the other teams are. They were having a tremendous struggle, plus 34 seconds despite the safety car. Compared to the two McLarens who are in a different league, they are performing exceptionally well. And both on the wet, a difference of 2 seconds, 5 per lap, something astonishing, while on the dry, a little less. The difference between the two, that is between the McLarens and all the others. But still a significant difference, even in this case with the wet track. They have more grip compared to their opponents and manage the tires better. So I also want to give my opinion on the championship situation and then go on to analyze some individual incidents that happened in the race. Let's examine the standings. Piastri has 234 points, Norris 226. This win for Norris, awarded by the Federation, despite Piastri's error, comes despite Norris lacking Piastri's pace on paper today. And this, it must be reiterated, however, brings the championship situation to a difference of 8 points between the two. So from a possible 22-point difference to an 8-point difference, well, it significantly reopens the championship, even though it was already open before, but now Norris is closer to Piastri. And so the internal rivalry at McLaren heats up even more, while Verstappen is very detached, now out of the game. Also, because of today's race, we will comment, even after Red Bull's performances, situations in the championship, we see that we have a McLaren at 470 points first in the championship. And Ferrari is second because, due to Antonelli's withdrawal, Russell's 10th position, and a Verstappen who comes behind Hamilton fourth. Ferrari proves to be a bit more solid team in terms of managing the drivers, in particular. Both drivers always try to do their best. They somehow manage to score more points than the other teams. Red Bull races with only one driver. Mercedes often makes mistakes. Strategy, as we have seen, for example, also in Monaco, as well as here and here in Silverstone. So we have seen this situation that leads Ferrari to be the second force at this moment. So I want to say my piece about the initial situation. They have differentiated the strategy. We can see it well from here too. With both, with Russell who has mounted hard rubber, Leclerc has mounted medium rubber at the beginning, at the start of the race. So they started from the pit lane. In my opinion, Ferrari did well to differentiate the strategy between the two drivers. However, I didn't understand Mercedes' choice to put the hard on Russell and also the hard on Archimi Antonelli. So it didn't make sense to put the hard on the two drivers from Mercedes because it's a tire that really had little grip. And so that was a serious mistake on the part of Mercedes from my point of view. While Ferrari did well to differentiate the strategy, even if it didn't work on Leclerc, and there it would be interesting to understand if it was the driver who asked for a different strategy or the team imposed it. The fact is that Hamilton then had a great race, objectively. I ended up appreciating the soft tire. It was a more aggressive choice than usual by Ferrari to try and catch up with Hulkenberg. It didn't pay off, but it's okay. They tried something different, so I appreciated that. Verstappen made many mistakes because objectively, Verstappen, guys, after the restart on the safety car, he made that snap that then didn't allow him to fight. He could have easily settled for a podium behind the McLarens, but instead, he wanted to overdo it. The car's low power made it hard to handle in the wet. This is minor, but certain. We've seen many sideways at Magus Beckett's from Verstappen, but in fact, this team radio I'll show you from Verstappen says, mate. This car is undrivable. It's really undrivable. And we've seen that this Red Bull was undrivable. But Max really did it. He exaggerated a bit on the track, and so he went to do that spin, but he still managed to hold it. But it shows Max is very fast and strong in the wet. But when the car, in this case Red Bull, put everything on the qualifications, then on the wet race, it couldn't perform. Like the others, this was evident. They really had little aerodynamic load. I want to show you some situations. Well, here, as we were talking about Verstappen's snap, I propose it again at lap 11, in this case, with the battle with Norris. Verstappen goes off the track. Let's also look at other situations. This is when it really started to rain heavily. The situation was difficult to handle due to varying rainfall intensity along the track. And here we saw how the McLaren was flying in wet conditions, and let's take a look at some situations. Also regarding Leclerc, who, for example, here with the water that entered the visor and therefore prevented him from seeing. In that case, therefore, it also led to this mistake by Leclerc. But a Ferrari that doesn't move forward in the wet, guys, this is a problem. I mean, you can't have such an undrivable car. Let's also look at the incident involving Ajar. A shame because I expected a bit more from Ajar, but it's a mistake. From Rookie, objectively, you could really see very little. In fact, the issue of visibility on the track needs to be resolved from my point of view because it's a big problem. With the intermediate tire, about 35 liters of water are lifted. With the full wet tire, 85, as they also said in the commentary. But it's not possible that you can't use the full wet tire in a race. It means that you have to neutralize the race every time you have to use the full wet. And this is not good. As part of the race under the safety car, you may lose some of the show, including strategies and more. So this is a mistake. That is a shame. Let's see the mistake here by Ajar, who arrives there in front of him. I'm not wrong. Antonelli, who brakes incorrectly, and then there's incorrectly brakes a little earlier than Cobbs in a somewhat abnormal way. Exactly, and he didn't expect it. It's a fairly understandable mistake for a rookie, in my opinion, because unfortunately, mistakes can happen under these conditions. We also saw Bortoleto make a mistake at Silverstone, so it can happen. It's a shame because these are a lot of money for the team, especially for Racing Bulls. As he also said on the team radio, Antonelli appeared out of nowhere, literally because there was a cloud of water in front, so he couldn't see him. Visibility is always a problem under these conditions. And then it also compromises, let's say, the performance on the track, because it pushes less and also creates very dangerous situations. So we have to be careful. Certainly, whoever is in front has a huge advantage in wet conditions. Having said that, we have briefly summarized all the most important parts of the race. I'll also show you Hulkenberg's celebration. Let's watch it together. This is the celebration that Hulkenberg achieved. He was Grand Prix 2 in Grand Prix 2, when Formula 2 was still called that, in 2009. Hulkenberg absolutely deserves his first F1 podium. He's a great driver, as I mentioned earlier. Consistent, crucial for mid-ranking teams, even more so for me, for his consistency. And I also want to let you hear. Let's also hear Norris's words after the victory. Let's listen to them together.
We did it at home.
Norris's victory is crucial for his World Championship bid. In my opinion, it's a victory somewhat gifted by the Federation because he didn't have the pace to win. Today, this is an objective fact. He had more of it. Piastri, however, it was more Piastri. In my opinion, he fell a bit into that strategic mistake which he should not have made in such a tricky race like this one, that of Silverstone. Under these conditions, Piastri made an error that he shouldn't have, while Norris remained more composed. If we want, we have seen in this race a bit the opposite of what we have seen in this season, usually. Norris, who falls more into unpleasant situations, in strategy mistakes, anyway, trivial mistakes. Instead, in this case, Norris was the Piastri of the situation. He is a bit colder, and therefore, he managed to bring home the victory. Well, this was all I wanted to tell you. I also want to say one last thing about Ferrari, a small postscript that has also emerged. I'll also show the team radio between Brian Bozzi and Leclerc. Here there is a mistake in the writing, in the transcription of the team radio. Brian would be in this case. Why are you asking me so many questions? Hadn't you told me that the safety car was ending? A bit of misunderstanding between Brian Bozzi, Leclerc's track engineer, and Leclerc himself. This also continues a bit of misunderstanding between Ferrari's track engineers and the drivers in various team radios in racing situations. Then there's this episode here between Sainz and Leclerc that I wanted to show. It's a bit grainy, but we're going to comment on it together. A small mistake by Leclerc, who then completely cuts off Sainz, who then has to get back on track. And here he lost time, and there could have been a penalty for Leclerc in this case because he made this mistake that compromised an opponent's race. And I'll show you the image again once more of Piastri's braking and Verstappen's team radio. Here. Red Bull was very clever to immediately point out that Piastri slowed down unusually, braking too early before the safety car returned. And so this is an objective fact. So, and I'll show you the last thing about Ferrari that we were saying earlier, as we've seen a significant difference in the Ferrari earlier in Q1 and Q2. Look at this picture here. Charles manages to do better the driven part, let's say, of Silverstone in qualifying in Q1 compared to Q3. So be careful. The car is more balanced in Q1 compared to Q3. We also see the picture here. In this case, perhaps also due to the asphalt temperatures, however, it's impossible that the car is better balanced in Q1 compared to Q3. Ferrari often shows little improvement from Q1 to Q3 while their competitors make significant gains. And some have also pointed out how the car changes based on the level of fuel that is present. I'll show this excerpt from the Formula Passion article that tells us there is a system that could be linked to how fuel is taken from the tank. And so this appears especially from Q2 onwards, where a single fast lap is made, while in Q1 more attempts are made with a bit more fuel on board to try to take advantage of the evolution of the track, and therefore the track that gets more rubber. Whereas when a single attempt is made, therefore, there is really little fuel in the tank. There is a problem with the fuel pump, so it doesn't pump too much fuel. The pumps that are inside the tank, that is at the outlet of the tank, and so this causes a loss of power. This is a hypothesis made by Formula Passion, which wants to report on the possible problems of Ferrari and the lack of evolution. Let's say the lack of improvement of the single-seater from Q1 to Q3 in qualifying. And this could be what he was referring to about the Leclerc in the improvement that will come in the future on his Ferrari, which will also improve the Red's performance in qualifying. So a 4th and a 14th place for Hamilton and Leclerc, which leaves a bit of a bitter taste in this race at Silverstone. Tell me your opinion on this. I'm curious to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. No video that comes out here on the channel. Here, sitting down. See you in the next video.